Welcome to Chapter 8, which deals with total reward. So if you are following the money, you finally got here. You show me the money, you finally got here, okay? Because Chapter 8's in the old days, we used to call total reward, compensation, and benefits, but it's a little bit more than that. Okay, so the money chapter then. Let's take a look, dive right into it, starting with the key idea here. Okay, so the key idea is by taking a total rewards approach, which is going beyond just the compensation and benefits, organizations can create a compelling value proposition that, this is important, attracts, retains, and motivates an appropriate workforce. It is imperative or important that workers understand the value proposition, i.e. clear communications around rewards is needed. Lots to unpack there. So basically, with a total rewards approach, you're going beyond just trying to attract and retain people with compensation benefits. You look at other things in the organization, like training opportunities, like recognition, okay, like work-life balance, all right? So you're using the whole bag of tricks rather than just the dollars and cents. So when you're taking a total rewards approach, you need to decide on first the amount and type of resources that you're going to throw at the employees, okay? And that's going to be based on your strategy, whether you're trying to make a cotton t-shirt or whether you're trying to find the cure for COVID. Once you've decided the amount and type of resources you're going to throw at employees, you're going to create the whole package. Okay, so compensation, benefits, and the other, the work-life balance, the training, the recognition, etc. And then, most importantly, you're going to have to sell it to the employees, okay, your potential and current employees. So you're going to want to attract, retain, and motivate the appropriate workforce, so the people who you are after. All right, so again, the key thing about total rewards is it's more than just salary. All right, key idea. Learning objectives, there are 6. The heavy one is number 2. Yeah, number 2. Most of the content, are particularly around compensation, is in number 2, right? But there are 6. So let's take a look at the first one, which is learning objective number 1. Discuss how organizations implement a total rewards approach to compensating and rewarding employees. All right. So on this slide, we got a couple of key definitions. So the first key definition is total rewards, the total of all financial, like the dollars, rewards, and other tangible benefits and service that an employee receives as part of his or her employment. All right, so the way to wrap your head around this, and I'm going to keep going back to this, is this bad boy here, which is figure 8.3 on page 199. Okay, so total rewards consists of compensation, benefits, work-life balance, performance and recognition, and the last one, career and developmental opportunities. All right, so that's a rather long laundry list. So when we talk about total rewards, we're talking about the whole page rather than sort of traditionally what people are focused on, which are the first 2 columns, which are compensation and benefits. Okay, so total rewards, the whole bag of tricks, otherwise known as compensation plus benefits, work-life balance, recognition plus developmental opportunities. So the 5 columns of figure 8.3. Sound like a broken record already. Total rewards goes beyond just compensation and benefits. It creates what's called a value proposition. And if you've taken marketing, I think you've taken marketing, hope you take marketing, because marketing is really good stuff. You have run across the whole idea of value proposition. Okay, so if I'm looking for a vehicle, I can buy an F-150, or if you want to say it the way, F-150, as the case may be. I can buy a RAV4 from Toyota, or I can buy the Pontiac Sunfire, okay? So I trade my cash for one of these packages of benefits, a 150, a RAV4, or a Sunfire, all right? And I am going to trade my cash for what I consider the best value proposition. Okay, so if I have the minimum amount of cash to buy either of those things, I'm going to actually spend my money on the one that gives me the most bang for my buck. Okay, and the second part is it lines rewards, total rewards, line rewards with business strategy, right? So let's say that I'm Google. All right, so if I'm Google, I need to hire the best talent because I want world-class innovation. I want world-class products, right? So I need world-class people, and I'm going to work them to death. All right, so if I want world-class people, I want to attract, retain, and motivate them and work them to death, I'm going to have to throw pretty much everything in figure 8.3 at people, right? On the other hand, if I'm Tim's, okay, my labor is easily replaced, okay, and it's really not about the people to a large degree in Tim's, right? So in terms of compensation and benefits, I can go far less than throwing a whole bag of tricks at them, right? I can go I can have a minimalist strategy when it comes to compensation and benefits. Okay, what else? So that's total rewards. I can take a look at what's called the total rewards model here, okay? Sorry. All right, so this gives you a sort of a shortcut or a heuristic of, how to come up with a compensation and benefits or total rewards policy here. So you start with the external influences, so economic, labor market, cultural norms, and regulatory. Okay, so depending on the labor market, the economy, that will give me two things. It'll give me an indication of how much I can sell, how much money I'm going to make, but it also gives me a indication of the going rate for labor, right? And cultural norm, what people put up to, and regulatory gets into things like minimum wage, etc. So you've got these external influences are going to affect your business strategy, okay, and your organizational culture and your human resource strategy, right? So it might be a good time here to talk about a example here. So on the one hand, I could be Tim Hortons. On the other hand, I could be Starbucks. All right. So then, if I'm Tim Hortons, take a look at the regulatory, my business strategy is I'm trying to sell $2 coffees basically to the masses. Okay, I think I can make money doing that. If I'm Starbucks, I'm trying to sell overpriced, over-caffeinated drinks to soccer moms and professionals at $5 a crack, right? So Joe Lunchpail over here, soccer moms and professionals over here. All right then, how is that going to affect my human resource strategies? So with Tim's, basically, if I'm trying to sling $2 coffees, the labor is pretty replaceable. Okay, I'm not going to need a highly skilled labor force and pretty replaceable. So I can probably get away with a more minimalist reward strategy. If I'm Starbucks, where I'm using trying to make $5 coffees, there's a little bit of skill involved in making those coffees, and I'm selling the experience much more so at Starbucks and the brand and the prestige rather than our Tim's, right? So I'm going to need a little bit, more skilled employee, probably a little more engaged employee. And that's going to affect my reward strategy, okay? So compensate, my reward strategy, then compensation, benefits, work-life balance, recognition, talent development, things like that. Okay, so minimum wage, minimum benefits, short hours, anything that doesn't cost me a lot of money on here, yeah, I'm going to do that at Tim's. If I look at Starbucks here, I want a little bit better person, so a little higher wage, benefits, lots of opportunities for advancements, lots of opportunities for development. I can move up in the organization. And the other type of employee I'm trying to attract here is kind of a sort of a green, want to save the world employee. So I'm going to have a green, save the world strategy as well, right? So that's going to be a part of the total reward strategy. Okay, so Tim's minimalist strategy, Starbucks, a more involved strategy, certainly not to the point of Google, but certainly more than Tim's, right? Now, that's going to attract a certain type and retain a certain type of person, sort of a low-skilled, replaceable person. Here, a little higher skilled, still replaceable person. Okay, probably a little more energetic and engaged person over here on the Starbucks side. And it's going to motivate and engage. All right. So again, I don't need a lot of real motivation and engagement at Tim Hortons. Starbucks, which is more about the experience, which is more about the brand and prestige, they're probably going to have to be a little bit more engaged. Okay, so that's essentially how we knit all these things together. So this is kind of a summary slide in a lot of ways. Okay, couple of definitions here. So total compensation basically is direct and indirect compensation received in exchange for time, effort, and results, etc. So all 5 columns, total compensation. Direct compensation, financial rewards as they received as part of their employment. Column 1 here. Okay, so things like hourly pay, piece rate, commissions, incentive pay, okay, even stock. A company stock would be in direct compensation. Indirect compensation, everything else, columns 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that includes things like benefits, that was done here, like workers' comp, employment insurance, let's see, a pension plan, holiday pay. It includes things like work-life balance, so maternity leave, sabbaticals, performance recognition, like the Employee of the Year, okay, performance, frequent one-on-one meetings, and last one, development and career opportunities. Okay, so tuition reimbursement, what else? Coaching and mentoring, internships, apprenticeships, that sort of thing. All right, get her, got her, good. Okay. Let's recap then for number 1. So to recap number 1 here, what I want you to know about that one here. Okay, so your total rewards approach, first of all, you start with your strategy and the labor market. Okay, you come up with a value proposition. So you select from the different columns in figure 8.3. From that value proposition, that will attract, retain, and motivate a certain type of employee. And that's basically it. All right. So that's how it all knits together. Okay, the money objective. Okay, objective 2, identify the kinds of decisions and influence involved in providing base pay for employees. So this is the column 1 stuff here. Okay, so decisions about base pay, and this here is a summary slide. We get the excruciating detail in the following slides for each one of these. Okay, so how much am I going to pay them? Am I going to pay them $15 an hour? Am I going to pay them $20 an hour? Am I going to pay them $1 million a year? Okay, some of the considerations, legal requirements, okay, so employment standards, pay equity, that sort of thing. Talk about that in a bit. Minimum wage. Market force, okay, the how much am I going to make and what's the going rate? Organizational goals, do I want really high-skilled people? Do I want replaceable people? And cost control, right? So do I have to minimize on my human resources, or can I spend a whole bunch? And those result in pay level decisions. Pay rates, okay, how much we pay. Pay grades, how we group the jobs together by pay. So similar jobs get similar payment, or similarly rated jobs get similarly paid. Pay range, which is the difference between the highest and lowest paid person within a pay grade. At Grand Prairie Regional College, for example, we had 13 steps. There are 13 different pay rates for instructors between the beginner to the person who's been there for 13 years. And pay differentials, those are things like bonuses and premiums. For example, some places you get a $1 an hour bonus for $2 an hour bonus for if you do the night shift versus the day shift. Okay, so this is the summary slides. Pay structure then. So pay structure refers to job structure and pay level. Okay, and job structure is the relative pay for different jobs within the organization. Okay, so how much do we pay the receptionist okay, versus the engineer versus the CEO. Okay, so it's a relative pay for the different jobs. All right, and that refers to internal equity. Well, we'll introduce that concept a little bit. Level. The pay level, on the other hand, is the average amount the organization pays for a particular job or jobs, right? So do we pay at the market rate, sort of the average? Do we pay above the market rate, pay better than other people? Or do we pay the below the market rate? Sometimes you might choose to pay below the market rate, but make it up with things like recognition, employee discounts, better training, that sort of thing. Okay, and pay level refers to, sorry about that. Pay level refers to the external equity. Okay, so internal for the job structure, external for the pay level. And what else do I say here? Pay structure helps the organization meet goals related to motivation, cost control, and attract and retain. So the goal then is to meet the organization's needs with their pay structure, okay, which is quite often to make a profit. And second one, we'll get back to this, the ability to attract, retain, and motivate employees. Okay, that's what you're trying to do. Okay, so first components of your pay structure is your legal requirements. Okay, and I'm going to group these two together, human rights legislation and pay equity. All right, because this will come up again and again. It's really kind of almost one and the same thing, right? So with human rights, it says difference in pay must link to responsibility or performance, not proscribed grounds. So if we have a predominantly female job, like engineer, like a nurse, and we have a primarily male job, like an engineer, and they both contribute the same amount of value to the organization, they need to be paid similarly. Okay, that's known as pay equity. Or what we had at the phone company, we had a predominantly female job, which was the customer service representatives. If they contribute the same amount of value as the ditch diggers, we called them, I forget what we called them, but they were the people who buried the cable. If they both contribute the same amount of value, they need to be paid the same, okay, with the pay equity. All right. Okay. All right, so that's pay equity, which is also covers your human rights. Employment standards, labor standards, so laws, minimum wages and benefits, when overtime kicks in, minimum wage, holiday pay, that sort of thing. Those are pay requirements. And this one's kind of interesting, pay transparency. Some government employees and salaries are public. In Alberta, it's called the Sunshine List. So fun fact, if you want to know every employee at Medicine Hat College who makes above a certain level, I think it's like 125 or 130K a year, you can find that out. It's a matter of public record if you want to dig for it. All right. So if you make the Sunshine List, you know that you are a relatively highly paid government employee. So yeah, pay transparency is another legal requirement in some cases. Okay, now market influences on pay. There's two. There's the product markets and the labor markets. Okay, so again, I'm going to go back to Tim's and Starbucks. If I want to sell my coffee at $2 a cup, okay, my wages are kind of important because the wages is a large component of the costs of a fast food restaurant, right? So I got to control my cost of labor, right? So that's why we're seeing more like $15 an hour at a place like Tim Hortons. If I'm Starbucks and I'm $5 a cup or up, you get them fancy drinks with all the other stuff there. I'm going to have less of a constraint on my wages, right? I've got a little bit more room, a little bit more margin. I can pay people better for that, right? I'm selling $5 coffees versus $2 coffees. And then the other part here is a labor market. Okay, I need to compete with other firms to hire the same skilled employees. So a place like Tim Hortons, okay, there's a large number, or a relatively large number of people who are unskilled in this particular market, particularly when you get out east. Okay, if you get to New Brunswick, for example. Okay, there's a lot of people with minimum skills, and there's a lot of employers, but there's also a lot of jobs, right? So if you're Tim Hortons, you're also competing with Walmart and McDonald's and Burger King, right? For those type of people, right? So if there are a fair number of people in for those positions and fair number of jobs, but it's in balance, then you don't really have to compete a lot, right? So you're probably okay with minimum wage. You get to a point like they did in Fort McMurray a number of years ago. Tim Hortons couldn't hire people even at $20 an hour. They had to go through. They had to go close the restaurant and limit it to drive-through, right? Because there was just so many jobs in Fort McMurray and unskilled jobs and or low-skilled jobs, and very few people have filled them. Okay, so your product market, your labor market is one influence on pay. Okay. Organizational goals, then pay level, deciding what pay to, deciding what level to pay. So a couple things here is we start with a range, okay? So with a pay range then, employers may choose to start at to pay at market, above market, or the below market rate. Okay, note though is, sometimes pay is more of an investment than a cost. You get what you pay for, right? So what do you get when you pay minimum wage? Well, you get a low-skilled worker, perhaps a low motivation worker, and you get a lot of high turnover because there's a lot of these jobs available, and if the better job becomes available, people are going to leave your job then, right? Okay, so you get what you pay for in a lot of cases then. Number two, okay, so deciding what to pay is gathering information about market pay. There's something called benchmarking. What benchmarking is a way to do a salary survey or pay survey, right? So I used to have to do a couple of these. So you'd phone around and ask people, what are you paying for this job or that job, right? And to do that, you use a standard sort of job, a benchmark job, right? So some standard jobs would be things like an assistant or a server or engineer or electrician. Basically, or truck driver. The duties are the same from one context to another one, right? So those make really good benchmarking jobs. And once you've got an idea of what the going rate for those jobs are, then you can give you a better idea and if you decide to pay at what that rate is. What's the going rate now for a truck driver? Is it $20 an hour? Is it $25 an hour, right? Your pay survey. And then the third part, deciding what to pay, is pay fairness, okay? So pay fairness needs to be both fair, both internally and externally. And I'll talk about those in the next slide here, right? And the other thing is, these days, particularly with the interwebs and social media sites like this, it's fairly easy to get an idea what people have a better idea of what the going rate is. It's like that with anything with the internet now. You've got a better idea what the going rate for anything you buy now is, like houses or cars. So the same thing now is with jobs here, right? So there's a lot more transparency than there used to be. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about internal and external equity. Internal equity is the degree of fairness, okay, or the perceived degree of fairness between jobs in the same organization. Okay, so the pay of electricians versus the pay of office clerks at the same company, all right? External fairness is the degree of fairness in pay between similar jobs in different organizations. The pay of servers at Tim Hortons versus the pay at servers at McDonald's, right? Both are important, okay? Or for a couple of reasons. First of all, with external equity, okay, if I feel that I'm not being paid fairly with in terms of the job in other organizations, that may get me to go across the street and work for the competitor, okay, for a couple of dollars an hour more, right? If there's not external equity. Internal equity is probably worse, okay? If I don't have the perception that it's fair, okay, that I'm making $25 an hour and the boss's son who started yesterday is making $35 an hour, that's going to be really demotivating for me. So instead of quitting, going to the other one, I might quit and go to the other one, but more likely I'll quit and stay, which is worse. So I'll show up, but I'm not going to give you a lot of extra effort there, okay, if I perceive that the internal equity is not there, right? Okay, so it's important that employers realize this and explain things. So explain why. Okay, there's a difference in pay between the boss and you, if there is the boss's son and you. Okay, explain to them why an engineer makes $15 an hour more than the admin assistant do. Okay, it's really important to do that, right? Okay, otherwise you end up with some problems. Okay, now a way to ensure internal equity is a process called job evaluation. And again, I think I talked a little bit about this last time, is don't confuse job evaluation with a performance evaluation. Job evaluation is a process to measure the relative worth of an organization's job. Okay, so what we pay our admin assistants versus our engineer versus our president. What's performance evaluation is how X employee did at their particular job. So Buddy, who is an admin assistant, how did Buddy do this year? That's a performance evaluation, not a job evaluation. Okay, to make sure you know the difference. Okay, now, so really what's job evaluation allows you to do is compare apples to oranges. All right. So for example, if we take a look at the college here, we have clerks who work in a bookstore. We have a fitness center attendant, and we have a grounds worker, people who shovel the snow and look after the flowers. All right. Let's say for argument's sake, they're in the same pay grade. Okay, and you go, well, how can that be? Because they do quite a bit different things, right? That the fitness center attendant does, than the bookstore clerk who does, than the person who's working on the grounds. But in terms of value to the organization, they're equal. So how do we evaluate that? Well, we evaluate that on 4 compensable factors, and those are skill, effort, responsibility, and working conditions. Okay, so skill is things like what you have to know, okay? So what do you need to know to work in the bookstore? What do you need to know to be able to shovel the snow or look after the flowers, right? Quite often skill, things like education will get into the amount of skill. So, you know, are you a cardiovascular surgeon or are you a ditch digger, right? There's certain skills you have and certain levels of skills, okay? Effort, and that refers to 3 types of effort. There's the physical effort that you have to do, the mental effort you have to do, and the creative effort that you have to do, right? So some jobs require quite a bit of mental effort, not physical effort. The outdoor worker requires a lot of physical effort, maybe not a lot of mental or creative effort, right? Responsibility, okay, 2 things there. It usually refers to financial responsibility, actually 3 things. Okay, how much of a budget are you responsible? What are the impact of any errors you make? If you're a cardiovascular surgeon, you make an error, that's life and death, that's quite a bit. And the third one is the number of people who you are responsible, who report to you, right? So, you know, president is basically everybody in the college reporting to him versus a grounds worker who has nobody reporting to him, right? And the last one is working conditions. Do you work in a nice, comfy office, or do you work in a raging blizzard? Is there a lot of travel? Is there a lot of stress, right? So those you can take a look at a job based on those 4 factors, and these factors aren't all equal. Okay, generally in a job evaluation system, skill is number 1, responsibility is number 2, effort's number 3, and working conditions number 4. So it might be something like 40% skill, 30% responsibility, 20% effort, and 10% working conditions. Okay. So what I would invite you to do is go look at the other learning resources for this particular chapter, and there's a really good chart in the first other learning resource that goes over the compensable factors and gives you a example of a hospital on how you would compare the job of the head surgeon right down to the person cleaning the room. Okay, that'll really allow you to wrap your head around this whole idea of compensable factors. Okay, so the result then of the point factor system is we can compare different jobs, apples to oranges, to ensure internal equity. So what happens then in a point factor system is you come up with pay grades, right? So when I was working at the phone company, for example, we had a pay grade 20. And a pay grade 20 included people like who at the time were foremen, okay? So people who were first line managers for a crew of workers. If you were an HR professional, you were level 20. If you were a manager for the phone store, okay, the retail outlet, you were pay level 20. A pay level 24, because they had more skill, effort, responsibility, and worse working conditions, or at least the same. They had a higher score. They were a really specialized professional, like a senior accountant, for example, or a second level manager, so somebody who would supervise the foreman, or a manager of professionals, so the human resource manager at a department. If you were managing the recruitment department or the selection department, you were a level 24. And then a level 26, which was one more up, that was director. So like the director of human resources was a level 26. Okay, so that gives you an idea of what that is. All right, look at an example here then. So if I wanted to try to compare a database administrator to a software development to a business system analyst, okay, we look at the skill, okay, these points. You get these points for effort, they get these points for responsibility, and these points for working conditions. Add them all up, and you see that a database administrator is a level 130, so they would be in 1 pay grade. Software developer was 210. That'd probably be 2, maybe 3 pay grades up from the database administrator. And the business system analysis, there's a 60-point difference there, so there's probably another 2 pay grades up for them, right? So they would be paid at different levels, okay, based on the skill, effort, responsibility, and working conditions. Okay, so the pay structure then is when you put all this together, okay? So that reflects decisions about how much to pay, the pay level, and the relative worth, the job structure. So how much do I pay and where do the jobs fit in relation to each other, as well as market forces and organizational goals. Way back to that initial slide we had that showed that one here. This bad boy right here. No, actually, this bad boy right here. Okay, where am I here? Job evaluation, pay structure. Okay, so that's pay structure. So that's a key definition there. Pay rates are how much you pay. All right. Pay grades are set of jobs having similar worth, and I just described that in that last slide with the level 20s, level 24s, and level 26s. And the pay ranges, okay, minimum, maximum, and midpoint, okay. So for example, at when I worked at Grand Prairie Regional College, if you had a PhD and you were an instructor, the pay range was anywhere, it started around 75K a year, and I think it topped out at 127K a year. You could actually make the sunshine list. Good for you if you were a fully experienced PhD. And the basic administrative system, the pay range there, I think was somewhere from about 40K a year to 60K a year. That is a pay range. Okay, one more topic in this one here, and this is an alternative to job-based pay. One trend is something called broadbanding. So that's a pay structure that consolidates pay grades into a few broad bands. Just to give you an example, in a lot of universities, for faculty, they'll have an assistant professor, they'll have an associate professor, and a full professor, and there'll be a pay range within each one of those. If I went to a broad banding system, I'd get rid of all those three categories, and then I just have one category called faculty, or instructional faculty there. Okay, and the advantage of that is it just simplifies a lot of things, and also some people, are really, if you really want to encourage long service, so it allows you to have people stick around a long time and be able to advance within that pay band. So you have more steps, but broader categories. Okay. What else? Competency-based system, and this is also known as a pay-for-knowledge system or skill-based system. Classic examples of that is apprenticeship. Okay, so you get one pay level if you're first year, second year, third year journeyman. Okay, the more you know, the more you learn, the higher you get. Or sometimes it's even more simple than that. You go and get air brakes if you're a driver. So if you are an employee and you've got your air brakes ticket, that's another couple dollars an hour. Or you're a parks worker and you go out and you get your ticket where you can spray all those provincial tickets for spraying poisons. There's a better word for that. That might be worth $2 an hour more for your rate, right? So that's known as a competency-based system, so an alternative to skill, effort, responsibility, and working conditions. Okay, let's put all that back together, and boy, there's a lot of stuff there. So what do I want you to know for this? So for this here, okay, to recap then, you have your pay structure, okay, and your pay structure is your system to pay people. And that's composed, number one, of your job structure, so how I put things together into pay grades. And that's based on job evaluation, skill, effort, responsibility, and working conditions. And that helps with your internal equity. The second part of your pay structure is your pay levels. Okay, so how much do I decide to pay? Do I pay at market, above market, below market? Okay, and that also deals with what's known as external equity. Okay, and finally then, you should also know, okay, yeah, so that's basically it. But again, the other part of this one is know what job evaluation is, particularly the whole bit about skill, effort, responsibility, and working conditions. Take a look at the additional learning materials in this chapter here for good examples of that. Objective 3, describe how organizations recognize individual, team, and organizational performance with incentives. So this one's all about the incentive pay. So incentive pay, you have individual, team, and organizational ways of giving out incentive pay. So we'll start with individual. The classic is the piecework rate. So a good example of that would be a tree planter. So if you're a tree planter and you're getting 10 cents a tree, if you plant 1,000 trees in a day, you make $100, right? When I worked for Athabasca University as a part-time tutor, telephone tutor at the time, we got paid per assignment. So every assignment you got was worth, I think, $7 or $8, something like that, right? So that's piecework. A standard hour plan is kind of a takeoff on piecework. So with a standard hour plan, you are paid if you go over a certain amount. So let's say you had to make 20 widgets an hour or 160 widgets in an 8-hour shift. So every widget over 160 would get a bonus. So maybe 25 cents a widget after 160 in a shift. Okay, that's a standard hour plan. Merit pay performance bonuses. These are often paired with your result from a performance appraisal, right? So you might get if you were an A performer, you might get a 5% raise. If you were a B performer, 3% raise, and a C performer, no raise at all, right? Or those could be lump sum bonuses, like $2,000 bonuses if you're an A performer, $500 bonus if you're a B performer, and no bonus if you're a C performer. And the other one, again, another classic, is commissions. So you're paid on a percentage of your sales. So real estate agents are paid on commission. I think the standard now is 6% on the first 100,000, and then 3% on any amount over $100,000. Okay, so those are commission. So those are individual ways to work with incentive pay. Team incentive pay, there's two. One is gain sharing, and with gain sharing, that's if your team found a way to do things more efficiently, the company would share the savings with you, right? So they give you, a bonus for finding a way to do things more efficiently. So for example, and I'll give you another further example of this, if you work on a team that's stocking shelves in a department store, and your team figures out a way to stock those shelves 10% faster, and that results in a savings of, let's say, I don't know, $10,000 a month. Then through a gain sharing system, your team then would share in that savings of $10,000. So maybe you get half of it. So your team would be able to split up the $5,000, half of it, $5,000 a month between your team for finding a more efficient way to do things. Bonuses and rewards, again, I'll go back to the stocking shelves things. A friend of mine worked in a supermarket, and they stocked the shelves at nights, and as a self-directed work team, they were in charge of finding the best way to do that, right? So they worked on a bonus, right? So I think it was X number of feet of shelves stocked in the night. So if their team stocked more than, let's say, 150 feet in the evening, every foot over 150, similar to a standard hour play, they were, each individual was given, a bonus. Let's say it was 50 cents an hour or something like that. Okay, organizational, these are based on the results of the organization. So profit sharing, so if the company makes $1 million in profit, the employees will get a percentage of that. So let's say 20% of profits are shared with employees. So $200,000 would be split in that case among the employees. Stock ownership is basically you give or sell at a discounted rate stock to your employees. And now if the stock goes up, presumably because the organization does well, the owners of the stock, which are the employees in this case, share in the gains. All right. Particularly CEOs are given a lot of stock ownership plans, so stock options or outright grants in stock as well. Okay, so collectively, those are the three types of incentive pay. So to recap really quickly, incentives can be based on individual performance, like a piece rate, team performance, like gain sharing, and organizational performance, like granting stock and the stock going up. Okay, simple, quick objective. Objective 4 says, summarize the role of employee benefits and the types of benefits offered by employees. This is a little more involved than the last one. So the summary slide here. So first thing to remember about employee benefits is column 2 on the magic chart, 8.3 or whatever I showed you earlier, right? So that's the first thing. So they can include anything from, dental plan, pension plan, what else? Employee discounts, number of different things. Okay, there's literally there's literally hundreds of things to do. And some are quite creative. One of the most creative benefits I ever saw was I went for a tour at the Ben & Jerry's ice cream factory in Vermont one time, and one of the employee benefits they had is that you got a free pint of ice cream for every uh, shift that you worked. You could take home a pint of ice cream, right? And judging by some of the people working there, I think there was quite a bit of uptake on that particular benefit for some of the people at Ben and Jerry's. Just saying. Okay, now, unlike pay, benefits tend to be fairly consistent across an employee group. Okay, so generally, what you say is pay you earn, benefits you get. So what I mean by employee group, let's take the college, for example. So faculty, some people who are teaching students are an employee group. Senior administration would be an employee group. Non-academic staff, so people like working in the bookstore or people working on the grounds, they'd be a group. So within those groups, benefits tend to be fairly standard, okay? So faculty, I mean, if you're part-time faculty just starting out or a senior faculty, there'll be quite a range in salary, but benefits are pretty much the same per group, right? And you just don't have to earn your benefits, you just get them. You know, it's really a perk of just being part of the club here is the way to look at it. Okay, so like pay, benefits play a role in attracting, retaining, and motivating employees, okay? And benefits can provide a competitive advantage in attracting quality employees. And something like an employee discount, for example, are used particularly at a lot of retail stores. You don't get paid well, but you know, you get, when I worked in a department store, for example, we get 15% off everything. Managers got 25% off. If I look at the college, being a instructor, there were better paying jobs over the year, but boy, that pension plan they have is just a real benefit. Okay, so it really, after you've been in there for a while, particularly 20 years, you start looking at your pension and saying, wow, I should really hang in there for another 10 more years because I'm going to get a pretty sweet pension out of this, right? Okay, so they can be a competitive advantage why you'd work at the college versus working at the city or working at Ford dealership, for example, all right? Thing here is employees need to understand the value of the benefits to be motivating, okay? Communication from HR is vital. And I don't know, I wasn't paying attention really until the last probably 10 years of my career that, hey, this pension we've got at the college is really awesome, right? Anyway, and then not that there were a lot of other really good benefits and the salary was reasonable too to retain you, but particularly a lot of times employees won't necessarily understand the value of what they're getting unless they're communicated, right? So I think one of the things the college could have done over the years is really hammer on the value of what that pension is going to be when you retire. Benefits are costly, can be as high as 30% or more, sometimes a lot more of payroll costs, right? So once you start, you know, maybe paying somebody $15 an hour, but once you start putting employment insurance, Canada Pension Plan, WCB, et cetera, those can really add up, and pension in particular. Benefits can provide security for employees, free them up from worry so they can focus on the job. So if I've got a good sick leave plan, or if I've got a good dental plan, I don't have to worry about that toothache or how I'm going to pay for getting a fill-in, right? And again, allows them to focus on the job rather than worry about some other stuff. And the last one is tax laws can make benefits more favorable than pay to the employees. Okay? Oftentimes getting something as a benefit, like a dental plan, all right, is more favorable than having to pay for the dentist out of your after-tax dollars. Okay, that's a general slide here. This one's kind of important, makes a nice little exam question here. 3 objectives for benefits, the employees, organization, and societal. So the employee objective is benefits allow the employees to acquire needed services at less cost than they have on their own. Classic example of that is insurance, okay? I can go out and I can buy life insurance privately, or I can get life insurance as part of my part of my job, and that life insurance as part of your job was way less costly for me because I think the employer was kicking in for some of it as well, right? And again, yeah, the dental coverage, for example. Geez, we got a tuition waiver for our kids for the first 2 years of college, something like that. We're at Grand Prairie, right? So anyway, they can, rather than paying for this stuff out of after-tax dollars, if I get it as a benefit, that's good for me. Organizational objective. Benefits allow the organizations to attract and retain and motivate people, right? So if you really like ice cream, all right, I could work at many other places in Vermont, but you know, the fact that Ben and Jerry's pays about the same as everybody else, and you get a free pint of ice cream, I'm sold, right? It's going to motivate me to work there and stay there. And the other thing is keep them and their families healthy so they can focus on their work, right? So if you've got sick leave, if you've got a dental plan, I can not worry about my toothache here. I can get that fixed and I can be back at work, okay? So make people more healthy, productive employees. And finally, societal objectives. So benefits serve to improve society. So you think of things like pension plan, Canada Pension Plan, for example, or WCB, workers' compensation, insurance. Those make society a better thing because, again, those things, we live in a society where old people aren't impoverished, right? Or workers who are injured on the job aren't suddenly impoverished, right? And that's a good thing, basically, for society. Or if you have a dental plan, so people have good teeth, okay, that's probably a good thing for society rather than everybody wandering around with rotten snags coming out of their heads. All right, so 3 objectives: employee, of organization, and societal. Like I said, makes a good exam question. Okay, other way to look at benefits is there's the legally required benefits. So what Justin Trudeau and Jason Kenney and all those people make you pay as an employer, and then the optional ones. So legal ones are Canada Pension Plan or Quebec Pension Plan, if you're in Quebec. Employment insurance, okay, workers' comp, holiday pay, annual vacations, so 4% if you're part-time, or 6%, yeah, if you have 3 weeks vacation, and parental leave, so we used to call that mat leave, things like that. So those are legally required. The employers must provide these, and these are costly. Optional ones is anything else. So you may think of things like sick leave. Oh, that's got to be legally required. It is not. Pension, private pension is legally not. Dental plans are legally not. Okay, so it's up to the employer to put these in, right? And so most good benefit plans will have some or most of these, right? So sick leave, education leave. Usually some kind of insurance like life insurance, disability, a health spending account. So you get so many dollars that you can spend on things like massage, physio, chiro. Employment, health, and wellness. So that might be an example of X amount of dollars to spend on a gym membership, or you know, some places like a really large employer will have a gym and maybe get free gym membership as part of the company gym. Retirement plans, pension. Family-friendly benefits, so flex time, being able to work from home. These kind of start to drift into kind of a work-life balance, which is column 3, column 4 type things in the total rewards bag of tricks, i.e. figure 8.3. And other ones, things like tuition discounts. Okay, tuition thing, if you want to, they'll pay you if you want to take a course. Employee discounts. Okay, and EAPs, employer assistance plans. So again, if people are struggling and need some counseling, those would be other things, right? Okay, talk a little bit about retirement. This is important, okay? There's 2 types of pension plan. There's a defined pension plan and defined contribution plan. You should know the difference. And you should also know that the way things are going, you're probably going to end up with a defined contribution plan. All right, and talk about that in a minute here. So defined benefit plan are your classic pensions. So provides a specific amount of retirement income based on years of service, age, etc. Employer bears the investment risks. Okay, so for example, I put in my 35 years in at the college. Okay, I hit 65, and then I get a pension based on my income. So I'll get X thousand dollars a month for the rest of my life, and that pension might even be indexed for inflation. Okay, so that's known as defined benefit plan. Okay, dominant plan in the public sector. Okay, so teachers, for example, nurses, becoming very rare in the private sector. Okay, so outside of government, defined pension plans are very rare. Okay. Defined contribution plans, the way to wrap your head around that is usually what happens is that you contribute part to an RSP and your company will match that RSP. Okay, so specific contributions made by employer and employee, okay, into some fund. Now, unlike a defined benefit plan, your retirement income is based on the accumulated contributions and investment returns. So you invest that RSP in stocks and bonds and whatever else. And then at the end of it, when you retire, you have a big lump of cash. And on that big lump of cash, or the big lump of cash and stocks and bonds and whatever, then you draw whatever you need from that pile of capital, right? Key difference is the employee bears the investment risk. It's not a guaranteed payment like you get here of X thousand dollars a month. Your payment depends on how your stocks and bonds and investments do over the time you have it invested, right? Very, very different. So granted that you guys are probably, if you have a pension plan, are going to have a defined pension plan, it behooves you, of that word behoove, past perfect tense of behoove is behoven. Again, I digress. Anyway, it behooves one to learn a little bit about investing, okay, because your retirement is going to, having a good retirement, not having to work at Walmart or use the food bank perhaps when you're a senior will depend on your ability to make sure that defined contribution plan is making money. All right, word to the wise. All right, flexible benefits plans. What a flexible benefit plan is then is gives you some sort of choice, i.e. the flexible part, okay? So different employees have different needs. Let's say, for example, right now, my son, okay, is working at an accounting firm. He has a flexible benefit plan. So he's got pretty good teeth, so he kind of takes minimum on the dental plan. He doesn't, at this point, have any, what do you call it? So, kids, yeah, easy for me to say. Looking for a fancier word, children, okay? Dependents, that's it. If I think long enough, I'll get it. So he doesn't have any dependents right now, so he doesn't really need life insurance, so he takes the minimum amount of that. Doesn't use a lot of physio or chiro, so he takes the minimum amount of that, and then, but then he's given X amount of dollars for benefits, so he puts most of the rest of that into his retirement savings at this point now, right? Fast forward maybe 10 years from now, he's married, he's got a couple kids. You got a couple kids, you're probably going to need more of the life insurance, probably more of the dental plan. Okay, might be cutting back on some different areas there, right? And then towards the end, the kids are out of the house. Okay, he's probably thinking more about his pension. So again, he probably put more in his pension. So as your needs, employee needs differ throughout your life cycle there. So a flexible benefit plan allows you to choose, okay, match your needs to the offerings available. Advantage of it is much more motivating for people because, they're getting benefits that they actually can use. Disadvantages, increased costs. There's scale economies in benefits. If everybody took the insurance, okay, the cost of the insurance is per person is less, right? So the other thing to do is administration. If everybody has slightly different benefits, then there's the increased administration cost to a benefit plan, right? So you got to weigh the two. Typically, in a flexible benefit plan, you need to take a minimum. So even though if you don't have a need for life insurance, you'd have to take the minimum amount of life insurance rather than no life insurance. Okay, let's go back then and recap benefits. That was a little bit longer one than the one before here. What do you want to know about benefits? Okay, so benefits tend to be standard across employee groups, benefits you get as opposed to salary you earn. Salary tends to be more variable within a group. Benefits are good to attract and retain employees, i.e. pension for college. Once you've got your 20 years in there, you're going, oh, I better hang in there because this is pretty good. They're good for the employee because they lower their costs. They're good for the organizations because they keep employees healthy, and they're good for society because you prevent things like destitute old people or destitute injured workers. There's legally required benefits like CPP and WCB, and there are optional benefits like medical plans, dental plans, pensions, etc. All right, lots of stuff there. Number 5, review the importance of effectively communicating the organization's approach to total rewards. Okay. Communication is often the weak link. So it's basically saying there is, again, think back to the 5.3. There's a whole bunch of stuff on there. And quite often you may not realize some of the really good stuff you have with your total rewards package there, right? So a comprehensive community strategy is needed so employees can understand the total value of the rewards. Okay, so yeah, we don't pay as much, but that pension is good. Well, how good is that pension? Well, why don't you go and take a look? You go on the LAPP site, and it'll tell you how much that pension is going to be worth in 15, 20 years, right? Managers can play a significant role in communication, so they can be the conduit. Technology can be used to provide tools and information. So classic example are self-serve utilities. Again, I talked about the LAPP website. LAPP is Local Authorities Pension Plan website. You can go on there and they've got all these little calculators and doodads that show you, all right, if I work 5 more years, what's my pension going to be? If I quit now, what's my pension going to be? Okay. Anyway, yeah, so those can be really, really helpful. Or it can be as simple as you can go check your balance on your health spending account. So how much money do I have left this year to use for chiropractic or physiotherapy? All right, and okay, many options available, generation purposes. That's the whole idea of flexible limits I talked to. So communicating is often the weak link. I guess the thing here is a lot of people don't understand the value of the benefits. Quick one here. So to recap here, benefits are really to attract and retain people, but to do this, to be able to attract and retain people, need to understand what the benefits are. So it's incumbent, another great word, upon the organization and managers to be able to communicate the value of these benefits so employees, both potential and existing, understand them. Last one, objective 6, examine the issues related to compensating and rewarding executives, the bigwigs, the CEOs, top dog, big cheese, numero uno, guy at the top, be a woman at the top too. Okay, so executive compensation and awards, couple things, is CEO pay, so chief executive may be considered high in the context of equity theory, relative pay to the average worker. In some, many, I'd say many large American companies, the CEO's salary can be 100, 200, or even more times that relative pay to the average worker or the lowest paid worker, right? So just put that in context for a minute. Let's just say your pay is 100 times, you're the CEO, and let's say your pay is 100 times more than the janitor. What does that mean? What that means is that in 3.5 days, actually no, it'll be less than that. Usually what, 250 days of work? Okay, sure. So in, I just ruined it here for myself here, 100 times. Okay, so let's say in 2.5 days, your CEO makes what a janitor would make in the entire year at 100 times. Okay, and 100 times is low. Sometimes it's 200 times. Sometimes it can be many more than 200 times, right? So are they worth that? Okay. Some say no, some say sure. Okay, just view it as the business equivalent to the top talent in sports and entertainment. Basketball players, pro basketball players in the NBA can make up to or more than $40 million a year. 40 million US, so like 55 million a year Canadian. Crazy. Okay, why do they do that? Well, they're very rare talents, right? Some argue that a lot of CEOs are very rare talents, so they're justified in getting 100, 200 times more than the lowest paid worker. Okay, thing to remember about executive compensation is base pay is a small portion of total reward. So salary is usually a very small part. I'll show you the graph here in a minute. You're talking about benefits, pension. It's going to be a lot more. Stock options in particular. Okay, stock compensation can dwarf the amount of salary people get, and because of that, okay, because of the stock options, a balanced scorecard is usually useful for designing executive pay. That way they're not focused solely on financial objectives. Okay, and like I promised here, CEO pay breakdown here. So you look at the blue part, base salary, only 11%. Okay, so only, roughly a little over 1/10 of your total compensation is base salary, okay, based on this breakdown here, right? Bonus, quarter, that's big, so you better do well. Share-based compensation and option-based compensation, so those both basically the same sort of thing, roughly half will do with company shares there, right? Pension, 3%, and all other compensation, so benefits and things like that. All right, so key takeaway here is your base salary. Take home, the money you get every 2 weeks or every month is a relatively small percentage, like 1/10 versus the whole thing. Okay, so to recap, very short objective here is executives. They are obviously the highest paid people in the organization. Their pay is much more variable, okay? So it's not consistent like most people with salary over a year. So you can, depending on your bonuses, depending on how stock goes, you can be your year-to-year variability quite high versus most employees, which are usually the year-to-year take-home is usually fairly consistent. It can be it's often performance-based. Okay, the better the CEO does, or the better the company does, the more they get. And it can be customized a lot more, okay? So generally the way people are paid with employee groups, the way they're paid, not the amount that they're paid, is fairly consistent. If you look at a CEO, okay, the percentages here can vary between person to CEO. It's just a matter of figuring out in their contract what the various components are going to be. All right, big chapter here, so let's summarize the whole thing. Start with objective 1. It talks about total rewards approach here. So your organizational strategy, am I making a cheap cotton t-shirt? Am I trying to find the cure for COVID? Leads to your pay strategy. Okay, and with your pay strategy, you have to decide the amount that you're going to pay, and which of the many things for the bag of tricks, i.e. figure 8.3 that you're going to use to come up with a value proposition, okay, to attract and retain employees and motivate employees, okay? All right, so your strategy, organizational strategy leads to pay strategy. Figure out how much you're going to pay, what you're going to do, and then you're going to try to attract, retain, and motivate people. Number 2, that was a whole bit about compensation. There was a lot in that objective here, okay? So, thing about your pay system has to get 4 things. First of all, it has to be legal. It has to be fair, and make sure you know the difference between internal equity and external equity. Okay, it has to be profitable, so we can't bankrupt ourselves with your pay system. And it has to be able to attract the right type of people. Okay, if I'm trying to attract the best and the best, I need the best and the best total rewards system. Other things in learning objective 2 that were important was job evaluation, okay, which is important, so know what that is. And jobs are structured into groups, okay, into equal categories based on job evaluation, right? Which is skill, effort, responsibility, and working conditions. Okay, number 3 here talks about incentive pay. So there are 3 types: individual, group, and organizational. And particularly if you're trying to get your pay system to motivate people, there's a number of different options between it, right? We talked about things like piece rate, gain sharing, stock options. Number 4, benefits and services are used to help to attract and retain employees. They tend to be consistent across employee groups, and they're good for employees because they save them money, good for the organization because they keep the employees healthy and focused on their work, and good for society because you don't end up with a whole bunch of destitute, old, or injured people. Number 5, communication strategy is important. So understanding benefits is crucial. So a good communication strategy so people understand the benefits is good if you want to help get the value of the rewards and be effective in attracting and retaining people. And the last thing, executive compensation. So what you pay to the big dogs, the big cheese, the top guys, or women, as the case may be. First of all, that they get paid lots, big bags of money, that it's variable, okay, from year to year, often based on the performance, their individual performance and company performance, and that executive compensation is customized. So as part of the employment contract with your CEO, the terms and conditions can be quite tailored to the needs of the individual. That's it. That's all. That is chapter 8. Chapter 9 deals with labor relations.